Well, I should have read the memo. Being sandwiched between food and cocktails is going to be a hard act to follow. But look, I would like to say thank you very much to Sydney LHD for us as a small technology company to be up here. And I guess just talk a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing across the industry. As I was watching the demo here, I was thinking, why is it that food demonstrations on stage always do better than technology demonstrations on stage? But looking at the stuff that's on here, I'm not quite so sure. So, look, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing in healthcare. Look, without wanting to bring it down a little, you know, as those analysts say about things like Kmart, you know, we're running into some headwinds with our health system. We've got a great health system in Australia, very, very fortunate. But a couple of dot points there. How many nurses are there in the room? Yeah, great. So if we could clone the lot of you, would probably help start bridging that gap that we're going to face by 2025. And so we know that we're not going to be enough of us. We're going to have to use technology. Technology is not the sole answer, of course, but I definitely see it as part of a solution for how we're going to address some of these challenges we have. So what does this mean for, clicker? Technology. And I guess, you know, it's very easy to talk about patient-centered care, easy to say, hard to do, but I guess I see a world where people are going to be interfacing with a lot more technology for the healthcare. We're going to be using more technology in our health system. And just one of the dot points about what's going on in the industry, in the US in 2018, we haven't quite got the metric here in Australia, there was about $14.7 billion of investment in 1 year into digital health startups, and that's venture capital funding and so on. Now, in 2010, that number was about 1.3 billion. So we can see the energy, we can see the excitement about what technology can do and enable. So I certainly think for me, who's someone who's come out of clinical medicine technology into technology, it's an exciting space to be. So a lot of people ask, well, you know, Microsoft, you're the Windows and Office guys, right? What are you doing in healthcare? You know, trying to save lives through disruptive Excel spreadsheets. And we do a little bit more than that, and hopefully this will give you a sense of what we do. Other tech companies are doing some pretty cool stuff as well. So I guess I describe what we do into sort of three pillars. One is we've got a bunch of researchers, so we're fortunate. We have a significant investment into primary research, so we've got about 1,000 PhD people who can do curiosity-driven research. And you know, they've published 20,000 papers and so on. So there's a lot out there that they've also contributed to a lot of that research coming into our technology. So back in 2017, we got human parity of voice to text recognition using some of our technology, and that flows through into our platforms and capabilities. But we also work with a lot of partners as well. So what are the things that we focus on? And I guess the bit that we're sort of really talking about today is that sort of really interesting area, you know, getting into the buzzword bingo of data and AI, but, you know, we have to throw bots out there and blockchain, because otherwise I wouldn't feel like I was doing my role up here on stage if I didn't get those words out there. But there is a lot going on. You know, some of it's not just hype. There's some stuff that's actually starting to land and actually make a difference. And just to give you an example in the AI space, there's a great startup that's come out of Sydney, who were looking at viability of embryos that have just sold their first product to a Danish fertility company. So, you know, some of the stuff is actually making a positive impact and looking at viability of embryos in that example. So, what are we doing? And I thought I'd start with a little bit, coming back to that research story. We're a bunch of smart people. We do dedicated healthcare research. We've actually got a genomics team and sequences and so on. So I thought I'd pull out a couple of interesting things that we're involved in. And we've got a partnership with a company called Adaptive Biotechnologies. And so their team and some of our team sit together in the mothership of Microsoft in Redmond. And they're using a lot of our, you know, computing capability to look at T-cell receptor signals for markers of early disease. Now, this is pretty significant data. So already they're looking at about 1 trillion data points. They think to start trying to get some of the answers that they need to become a bit of a universal blood test of what disease someone might have from looking at these signals. It'll take about 5 times that much. So pretty intensive programming, but you know, this company, the Adaptive Biotechnologies, is, you know, there's a lot of support for them, because if we can get earlier diagnosis through blood tests, then that's a pretty good place to be. And I haven't mentioned Theranos yet. The second one is medical imaging AI, and obviously it's a big topic, you know, when you think about technology and diagnostics. So some of the work, we've got a team working in Cambridge in the UK with a particular angle looking at organ segmentation. So, you know, radiotherapy, I'm sure there's a few of you working in that sort of area. You know, it is a bit of a problem for people to segment where the tumour is over the, you know, organ, and planning to put where the linear accelerators need to beam just to make sure they don't hit the normal tissue. It's a little bit laborious, a little bit manual, so some of those tools now are starting to come in to speed up their workflow. Now, clinical research at scale, this is where I think it starts getting interesting. So this is health systems that we're dealing with. Got a couple of US examples there. I've been lucky enough to go to St Jude Hospital. So St Jude is in the middle of the US, and it's a paediatric oncology hospital, and it was set up to serve, you know, the needs of all children across the US. And even when I was there quite a few years ago, they were doing multi-panel genomic testing for all children coming through, regardless of cancer type. So we've got this huge database, petabytes of data, and you know, they're wanting to share that with other research groups around the world. And so now they've got 2,000 clinicians and 300 organisations who have access to that genomic data, but also a lot of those visualisation tools and processing tools for those big genomic pipelines. And then the other thing that's really interesting, I've come from a world of EMRs, you know, you get the EMR in and so what, you know, it doesn't necessarily do everything that you need to do, but I think we're starting to get the technology and the techniques to start really bringing some of that data to life, and start using that data for research. So Johns Hopkins is using their EMR data in collaboration with other data sources as well, and putting that out as a platform across their organisation for research, but even pulling data off telemetry and physiology data as well. So big data, really interesting, and I think that's the way, you know, a lot of the bigger health services will move to. And a recent piece of work we did in partnership with ANU last year was around their genomics. They're trying to crack 3D structure of a genome in a tumour cell. Obviously, they need about 15 weeks a year of pretty grunty processing to look at that structure and reconstruct what that might look like. So we use our technology to help them scale that up and spin the wheels and help them get their answers that they need. So I guess when we think about innovation, and notice I haven't talked about disruption. I really, you know, people, you know, those sort of Silicon Valley types come out and talk about disruption in healthcare, and I'm just not sure we're going to see anything that's truly disruptive. I think we're sort of a serial incrementalism with innovation going on. But if I think of innovation, I think it's doing things at new things at relative speed. Transformation, we were doing big new things. And I'm just going to talk to some of the things that we're doing around innovation, but bring it a little bit closer to home. And I'm going to start with a little video.
Okay, right, I'm going to try and replicate this here. Off to a great start. I tend to kind of just avoid doing sketching and writing now because it's not really worth it if you get something like that. Anything you could do that would just make my hand do what I want it to do and be able to sign my name would be an incredible thing.
How do we even just begin to help her overcome this particular symptom of her tremors and helping her be able to regain her writing ability, her drawing ability? So what I'm doing is I'm making a very rough prototype, and what this board does is I can connect into it through these wires, these tiny coin cell motors. So these motors will vibrate. I personally think that what this is doing is it's short-circuiting whatever feedback loop there is between the brain and the hand that's causing the tremors. So the idea is if you are distracted by the vibration, are you able to write better? I don't know. I don't know.
It's affecting something. I don't quite know what's happening.
I'm on to something, right? I'm on to something.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
forget that I have a tremor. I've drawn one of them for a long time. I've actually just written my name for like the first time in ages.
I can't believe it.
Mum, it's called the Emma.
Oh, brilliant.
It's got my name on it.
So, oh, that's nice. So there is an Australian connection. So Hayan is actually from Victoria. She went to Monash. She's out with our research team in the UK. So that was her project that she created, and amazing story. Now with New South Wales Health, this is a cool project that we've been involved in with New South Wales Health Pathology, who you'll know. And one of the challenges they have is that they provide point-of-care testing devices across New South Wales Health. So they've got about 600 of these at the moment, and it's a bit of a pain each time they've got to go to an LHD to connect to their network and so on. So we, in partnership with Siemens Healthineers and others, have helped them create a little Raspberry Pi device which will work to take the result data from the point-of-care test, like a coagulation machine, and pass that back. And as you will see, power chart and an EMR that you're all familiar with. So they've actually done this end-to-end testing to be able to get that result over 4G within 35 seconds. Now, this is pretty interesting because you think about all those mobile scenarios, potentially in the back of ambulances or in the more rural and remote areas, just being able to pull that data back in context, or starting to think about remote monitoring as well in the future. So that's going into a number of LHDs, into emergency departments, just to make that whole process easier. But really part of the long-term ambition with eHealth and health pathology is to see if they can use that data and physiology data coming through to look for early deterioration. The next one that we've been working with is Murrumbidgee LHD. So the problem that they had is they've got about 16 not-for-profits that form part of their alliance for mental health and addiction services. There's no really standard way of sort of sharing that data for a patient or consumer. So every time they go to a different service, whether it's Headspace or whatever, they've got to tell their story. It's something you hear time and time again. You've got to retell their story. And so we supported them with sort of an agile design using technology which you actually don't need to be a coder, and came up with a minimum viable product, or an app within 6 weeks. So that's going into a trial in July to see how that might help those particular scenarios. So again, this is not easy stuff. If it was easy, it'd be solved by now, but it's really good to see this come to fruition. And because I'm from Victoria, and I think this is a pretty amazing story actually, is the real-time prescription monitoring service. So this was an initiative by the Department of Health and Human Services. So in about 2017 or 2016, there's a realisation that Victoria and probably other states as well, and more people were dying from accidental overdoses of prescribed medications. It's about 1,400 in Australia. So what can we do? We know that we've got the electronic prescription data from every time you go to a pharmacist, and so they mandated that they were going to bring in the SafeScript system. So what was incredible at the speed that this has been rolled out. So it was piloted in Western PHN in Victoria back in October timeframe, and it's been rolled out now, and from April next year it'll be mandated. But what's really interesting, at 6 months, there's been 15,000 people who've been red flagged for doctor shopping. Essentially, I hate the word doctor shopping, but going to multiple people to get additional risky medication, and also, but they're identifying people who may just not be aware that they are on risky combinations as well. So some fantastic work. Obviously, there's a lot of additional stuff that needs to go around that. How do you get people into the right services to help them navigate? So a little bit of peek into the future, and I kind of did little wrappers there because some of the stuff isn't just in the future, it's kind of happening here and now. I thought I'd give a couple of examples. So that picture on your right, the patient and consumer engagement. There's a health service, Helsinki University Hospital in Finland is their biggest health system. We're lucky to have their chief innovation officer, who's a neurosurgeon, and actually worked here in Sydney as well. And they've got this amazing, it's basically the front door for their consumers and patients and families to come into their health service that they call Health Village. And so they actually use that to find out information about their disease. They go through these digital health pathways. They They even use it for virtual consultations and even remote monitoring. So there's a lot that they're doing for that. And we've got a health bot team. So they've got a little bot, a little widget that uses some pretty interesting technology that front ends that. So that can help guide people to get to the right, the right clinicians that they need to find access to the right information really quickly as well. So that was done as a demonstrator for the big HIMSS conference in Europe a few weeks ago. And the other one is on the other side of the falls risk prevention. Obviously, we know this is a big problem. Lots of different technology thoughts around how we might try and lower this. About 11,000 people in the US die every year. So this is, I don't know if people are gamers who might have seen the little Kinect camera that Microsoft once had. We'll bring out this little one which has this depth sensor camera, and there's a company in the US which is looking at that technology, see if they can predict who might be about to jump out of bed and fall. So different uses of technology, and obviously anything we can do to reduce that problem is exciting. So I'm just going to show you, this is a little bit of a quick video on the HIMSS. And HIMSS is a big conference globally that happens in the US. It's about 45,000 people. This is a bit of a snapshot of some more of our interesting technologies that we're working on in healthcare.
When we say reimagining healthcare, we're really talking about three things. One is we want to empower care teams. We want to enable more personalized care. The last thing is what can we do to enable all of the operational nuts and bolts of how a hospital system works. One of the great things that we are showing here at HIMSS is the hospital of the future. We have a system called InnerEye that really allows a radiologist to just dramatically improve productivity and precision in doing planning for cancer treatment. We took our chatbot technology and made it compliant with all the healthcare privacy regulations. In our Empower MD project, we've been trying to bring a whole slew of AI algorithms to automatically listen and observe a doctor-patient conversation.
This system is really my assistant. From a 21-minute conversation here, the system has extracted all of these relevant details and synthesized it to the correct section of the medical note. So I get to focus on my patient, and this service focuses on the generation of the clinical note.
And one thing that we are hearing consistently is an interest in embracing the cloud and AI.
We use AI and machine learning to understand patients with such detail and granularity. From there, we understand the risks that they have for negative outcomes. And then most importantly, we provide AI-driven interventions that are going to change the trajectory of that outcome from a negative to a positive.
The Azure API for FHIR allows you to ingest, manage, and store your data in the native FHIR format. We think it's so important to really allow our partners some of that foundational technology and platform service so they can use their development resources to innovate and drive new technology in their own ecosystem.
What we are seeing in the power of the cloud is the ability to bring all those different data sources together into one place in order to understand your health and wellness better.
Thank you. Just one thing I did want to finish on, and sort of showing that some of that vision is thinking about computing in a different way. Spoken a lot about the data and analytics piece, but also how we interact with data as well. So we've had our team out the side for any of you that may have seen HoloLens and the way that's being used for medical simulation. But what's been really interesting since I started at Microsoft is how quickly that's being adopted by some of the big technology companies. So this is an example I'm about to show you with Philips. We've also got a partner with Siemens Healthineers as well, but using this technology to supplement procedures, surgical planning just prior to going into theatre, etc. And we've already got a partner in the US that is using this type of approach that's gone through the sort of equivalent of TGA approvals in the US for this platform. So I'll just show you this video and I'll give you a sense of what we're trying to achieve with Philips.
In the image-guided therapy business of Philips, one patient every single second somewhere on Earth is treated with one of our products. So that's 28 million patients a year can be treated because of the work that we do here. That was the big reason I came to Philips. Image-guided therapy is modern-day surgery without the incision. We're navigating tiny instruments through the body through incisions no larger than a pencil point. We're relying solely on X-ray images or medical imagery to guide us. So that means we are always looking at a screen of data.
With HoloLens, We can take it to the next level. We are a leader in image-guided therapy, and with Azurion we created an industry-leading platform that customers really love. What's really cool about it is we've leveraged novel touchscreen technology to create a very powerful working spot for the physician. Our ultimate goal is to help doctors do procedures better, to help them innovate the procedure. With HoloLens, we can create a completely different experience, a working domain which is really tailored around the needs of the physician.
For complex procedures, physicians need to go from one screen to the other really rapidly. We can now get these screens to come in just by voice recognition, by eye tracking. This is all about efficiency. If patients are being treated and the procedure can be shortened, it's very beneficial for the patient.
At Philips, we strongly believe that technology is not the goal, technology should be the enabler. What we want is that the physician can just concentrate on the procedure and the patient, get them home faster and healthier. This partnership between Philips and Microsoft can have our users experience something completely new, something almost mind-blowing, something that they didn't think was possible, and help them improve care. That's a breakthrough. That's a complete game changer.
So I just wanted to bring it home. I guess a lot of people ask me about, how do you see digital innovation being successful? And these are some of my parting thoughts. Fundamental to success is just, what is the problem we're trying to solve? I remember that beaten into me as a trainee intern many years ago. And build a high-performance team, I think, is really important. Find good partners. I mean, I think you're incredibly lucky. You've got a fearless leader who cultivates this culture of innovation. Obviously, we wouldn't be here today. And you've already got a network. And never underestimate change management. But I think what I wanted to end on is not to take the fun out of this, although it's a serious world that we live in, work in, and all trying to achieve success for our patients and consumers. Is in the words of a CEO of a digital health startup that I've had the privilege to work with, save lives and have fun doing it. So thank you very much. Keep up the wonderful work you do. Thank you.